That means that we have that v of x equals 6 pi x squared. Now, what we need to understand are what the units are, or variables. This guy is volume in cubic inches. And this guy is going to be the radius. And that's also going to be in inches. So part A says, find the amount of soup in the can with a radius of 2 inches. That's an easy peasy. That says x equals 2. We'll take that. So when you've got, we're dealing primarily with functions in 2 variables. You're either going to put in x and get out y, you're going to put in y and get out x. You've got a 50-50 chance of getting it right. So that's why the units become so important, because if they give you something in cubic inches, you know you're going to be dealing with the volume or the y value. Right? And if they give you something in inches, then you know you're going to be dealing with the x value. So units sometimes can be kind of helpful. In intermediate algebra, oh, thank you so much. Everybody sign it? No? Sometimes we run into it with feet, and then it becomes quite confusing because you have to get the perspective of whether you're dealing with an x or whether you're dealing with a y. But this is pretty simple. That means I'm looking at v of 2, which is 6 pi, and then x squared or 2 squared. And this comes out to be approximately 24 pi. 24 pi what? Cubic inches, right? Or sometimes you can write it as, you see it this way, inches cubed. And if you wanted a numerical value, you can just put it in your calculators, get out the other. B says, find the inverse and discuss what the input values are. Well, let's see. Find the inverse. Well, the process. V of x is equal to 6 pi x squared. What do? We set this equal to y. Interchange x and y. And then solve for y. This gives us that y squared is x divided by 6 pi. And in order to find y, I'm going to do what? Square root both sides. And by the way, it is a plus or a minus. The only reason why I ignore the minus is why. But we're dealing with what? Real world problem, right? You don't have negative inches, you don't have negative volume. Would be nice sometimes. Or that y is equal to the square root of x divided by 6 pi. That's your inverse. So v inverse of x equals the square root of x over 6 pi. Now, in this particular instance, sometimes it's helpful to kind of draw a picture. And for me, pictures are always circles. And what here is radius, and here is volume. So V takes radius to volume. So what does the inverse then do? Pick up volume and returns it to radius. That means these x values here are volumes. that is your radius. So the input is volume, and the output is radius. Input is volume, output is radius. For those of you going to be taking trigonometry, the impact of the inverse functions is going to be very strong, because you're going to be taking essentially angles too. Angles will be your domain. And if you take the sine or the cosine or the tangent of that angle, that result is going to be your range. So the inverse function is an angle. So whenever you're taking the inverse of a trigonometric function, you're looking for the angle of that triangle. You're looking for an angle. And you have to keep that in mind. What am I finding? I'm finding an angle, I'm finding an angle, I'm finding an angle, I'm finding an angle. So input's going to be volume, output's going to be radius. If worst comes to worst, draw a dang picture. That sometimes can help you answer your the question. What's going to be your input, what's going to be your output.